journalists with requisite skills on topics relating to gender roles, children's rights, and media arts. The modules designed for the program, organizers agree, will help hone the skills of participants on professional reporting and media ethics. The executive director of the Gambia Press Union, Jibairo Jane, in his opening remarks expressed that their main objective as a union is to create a free society where accurate and relevant information can be obtained without recourse for trouble. This, he continued, will facilitate an enabling environment for the protection and empowerment of journalists.
By the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, through the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. The whole project came into being after the UNDP decided to support activities of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs into a national development program. And it was realized in that program that governance institutions, the capacity of governance institutions in this country needs to be enhanced to be able to effectively play their role.
Jane underscored the importance of the training workshop and expressed hope that participants will live up to expectations. Dr. Aissatou Touré is the executive director of GAMCO-TRAP. She highlighted the crucial role journalists can play in the promotion of Women's Act and other international instruments ratified by the government of the Gambia.
You're looking at policies, like he said, and a lot of social issues in which we interact among ourselves. And it's about gender reporting. You're looking at what men do, what women do. You look at what the institutions are doing, and within these institutions, you have men and women. You also have other issues within the institutions, tools, like policies, practices, and principles that govern those institutions. So it's all about men and women. But then looking at gender beyond that, you're looking at it as a discipline which has its own principles, practices, and praxis.
Dr. Touré urged the media practitioners to do much in promoting women's rights in order to empower their cause and to reduce marginalization. After the deliberations, participants were given the chance to ask questions and table out issues relating to different models. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Simaha.
We now take our first break. We bring you news from outside the country shortly after.
Ghana's leading ICT company, assemblers of mobile phones and computers, is now in the Gambia too. We are happy to bring our services to the people of Gambia and look forward to lasting relationship with the state and its people. Come choose from RG's range of phones and computers and enjoy delightful after-sale service and the confidence of warranties that will keep your devices good as new. Visit ILG at 62 Caraba Avenue, Circular KSMD, opposite the Pipeline Mouse, or check out rlggambia.com for more information.
RLG, proudly yours.
Welcome back. Officials are describing the situation in India as a Himalayan tsunami, as homes, temples and lives were washed away in the northern part of the country. Early monsoon rains have swept towns and villages, killing over 150 people. As CNN's Malika Kapoor reports, the death toll and devastation is expected to rise.
Exhausted but relieved. Car after car brought survivors of the devastating floods in India's Himalayas down to dry, flat land. One of them stops when they see us. Its passengers are keen to give us a first-hand account of their experience. Look, Sukhchen Singh says, I've got something for you. He shows us this terrifying video he says he recorded on his cell phone. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, he says. Chilling scenes like this of bridges, homes and cars being swept away have played out in various parts of northern India, which has been lashed by torrential rains since Sunday. There was nothing but death in front of us, says his friend Grts Singh. Now that we've got out, we feel like we've got a second life. Rescue teams have brought thousands of people trapped in swirling floods to safety. some in helicopters, some by road, some on foot. Many are still waiting to be evacuated. Some are still unaccounted for. Signs of destruction are everywhere. A walk along the bank of River Ganga shows the magnitude of the disaster. 3 days ago, the river was almost level with this bridge. The water has subsided now, but people here aren't breathing easy. It's just the beginning of the monsoon. That means there are still 2 to 3 months of rainfall ahead. D.K. Dixit says this is the heaviest rainfall he's seen in his lifetime. A volunteer at an ashram, he shows us what's left of a giant iconic idol of the Hindu lord Shiva. It was 15 feet high, he says, but the torrential rain washed it away. As the weather improves, worshippers return to the river bank to attend a daily prayer service. They stand amid the debris, unshaken in their faith. Malika Kapoor, CNN, Rishikesh, Northern India.
Sad indeed. Gone but not forgotten, Pope John Paul II continues to make headlines 8 years after his death. As Brian Todd explains, the late pontiff, who was most loved during his papacy, is closer to sainthood.
At his funeral, thousands chanted Santo Subito, sainthood now, a tribute to Don Paul II, maybe the most popular pope in the modern history of the Catholic Church. It's now 8 years later, and it's about as close to sainthood now as you can get.
For an institution that typically thinks in centuries, this is remarkably quick.
CNN Vatican analyst John Allen says, according to Vatican insiders who spoke unofficially, a second miracle has been performed by John Paul posthumously, a miracle that will likely make him a saint.
In this case, the Vatican is saying that there is a report of a miraculous healing of a woman in Costa Rica.
Allen says, according to the reports, the woman recovered from a severe brain injury. Church protocol says it takes 2 miracles performed after death to make someone a saint. John Paul's first, curing a nun who reportedly had Parkinson's, led to his beatification, the final step before sainthood. If a second miracle then happens,
and a team of doctors first examine the miracle, and then secondly, the team of theologians look at the miracles, and then they discuss amongst themselves the legitimacy and all the facts surrounding the miracles.
John Allen says that's already happened. Then a body of cardinals has to approve sainthood. And finally, the Pope signs off on it. The record for the fastest canonization in modern times? Jose Maria Escriva, founder of the conservative order of Opus Dei, made a saint 27 years after his death. John Paul could shatter that. But there are critics who say not so fast on canonization. They say despite being so beloved, John Paul II didn't live up to expectations at a crucial moment in the Church's history, a moment of shame that Church leadership is still dealing with. A crippling sex abuse scandal involving thousands of victims, with several Church leaders accused of cover-ups.
The rap against John Paul in terms of the sex abuse scandals is basically that this stuff metastasized during his papacy, and he didn't respond adequately to it.
I put that to the Archbishop of Washington, Cardinal Donald Wuerl.
What do you say to those critics? His ministry was so clearly a ministry of concern for everyone. Now, when you're presiding over a worldwide church with over 1 billion members, surely there are going to be things that happen over which you don't have a lot of control, or maybe no control.
Cardinal Wuerl and others say the measure of a saint is not the list of accomplishments or setbacks, but how holy the person was. John Allen says at this point, it's very likely that Pope Francis will approve the sainthood of John Paul II. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
The Syrian conflict has been described as a slow-motion civil war. The last 2 years has been marked by violence, death, and terrible injuries. But many Syrians are also suffering from psychological scars. This report looks at the plight of children who have been trapped and traumatized by the conflict.
As the onslaught in Syria continues, it's often the smallest ones, the country's children, who suffer the most. Many have been killed or maimed, many more displaced. Like these kids in Homs, where fighting is still intense. 8-year-old Bilal has not been to his home in about a year, he says. We were visiting some relatives because there was no electricity in our home. And while we were gone, there was shooting and bombing in our neighborhood, he says. We went home just to get our stuff and never came back. This Center for Education and Psychosocial Support is run by a local aid group and partly funded by UNICEF. Many of the children